Alright guys, so welcome back to the channel. Today's video is kind of a personal one, I would say. I'm making this video because I've been on the fence about pulling the trigger on a new dual sport. I am getting that itch. Something leaned a little bit more towards the aggressive side, and honestly I just can't make a decision, so hence this is why I'm making this video. Again, it's just for fun. I was originally eyeing the WR250R. I really loved how that bike felt. Just test rode it a few times out on the trails with some guy just randomly met. Unfortunately, I never took video of this, but I just still remember the feeling of it. It was light, playful, super reliable, of course, but let's be real. It had a bit of that KLX 250 vibe when it came to power, a little bit more punch.
Woo! Come on! See, I'm losing a little bit of power right here. First gear, full throttle. See, once it flattens out, well, this is still an uphill section.
So now, here's the thing. The CRF450RL is lighter by over 40 pounds, even with all fluids and a full tank. That's a huge... But the thing is, out here in Colorado, especially up in the higher elevation, I just know I would be stuck in first gear way too often with the power loss. Now, if Yamaha, of course, came out with a WR250R with all the same WR250R goodness, but with more punch, definitely count me in. That's exactly the bike I am after. Of course, it has not been released yet. So now I'm stuck at looking at the DRZ4S or the Honda CRF450RL. Both great bikes, but very different personalities. Let me break it down, and maybe you guys can give me some real-world feedback if you've owned or maybe even ridden either one side by side. Bike experience, and I want to talk a little bit about feeling on the trail. I've actually ridden the CRF450R, and to be honest, it rides like a full-blown enduro bike. It's wild how Honda managed to keep that lightweight enduro feel, even though it's technically a dual sport. Yeah, it's a bit heavy on paper, but you don't really notice it once you're in the zone on single track or two track and just riding away. The only thing that ever bugged me was just that flame out issue. And me, you know, I've been riding for a while. I'm not the best rider, but even me, I was kind of shocked on how fast this thing flamed out at low speeds. Now, keep in mind, this was the CRF450R. It was a pretty common issue on earlier models, but I haven't tested the latest version, so I can't really say if that's still around. I know there's ECUs and stuff like that. Now, the DRZ4S, this one is a little bit speculative for me. I haven't ridden this exact new model yet, but I've spent time, of course, on the DRZ400E and the older S models, so you can still paint a picture in a way. I'd say the CRF450RL just feels smoother, more refined versus the E and the S, but yeah, it definitely comes with a higher price tag. Now, let's talk about a little bit on specs comparison and, of course, performance edge. Now, here's the breakdown. The Honda CRF450RL is a 450cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine. Transmission is the wide ratial 6-speed. I really like how it just comes out of the showroom with the final drive of 13 in the front and 51 in the rear with the 520 chain. Front suspension is a 49mm Showa inverted forks with 12 inches of travel. Rear suspension's ProLink Showa shocks at 11.8 inches of travel. Now here's the little buzzer for me. Seat height 37.2 inches, but ground clearance of 12.6 inches. Fuel capacity is 2 gallons, and curb weight is 289 pounds. While the Suzuki DR-Z4S is a 398 cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder dual overhead cam. Transmission is a 5-speed constant mesh. Now, I do know Suzuki put a taller gearing in the transmission, I believe like on your 4th and 5th, so there were some changes on that. Front suspension is a KYB inverted fork with 11 inches and the rear is 11.6. Now the seat height is 36.2, ground clearance is 11.8, and I think the fuel capacity is 2.6 gallons, which is pretty nice if you're dual sporting around. But the curb weight is 333 pounds. Difference when you're muscling through tighter single track or navigating uneven rocky terrain where you need to put like a foot down and kind of try to balance the bike if you get caught off edge or something. The 6-speed transmission on the Honda also gives you way more flexibility, whether you're crawling up a hill or something, or cruising back on a long stretch of highway. Not to say the DRZ4S with its taller 5th gear might help quite a bit. Again, I haven't ridden the DRZ4S now, but the suspension wise, the Honda just edges out with higher end components and a bit more travel, which really matters a little bit. I mean, it's not a huge difference versus 11 and 12, but it does matter a little bit in the rugged Colorado backcountry out in the rocks and stuff like that when you want a little bit more comfort. Now the DRZ4S still holds its own. It's overall, in a sense, simpler. It's more approachable with a smaller seat height. Feels a little bit more relaxed for casual dual sport riding in my eyes. It might be a little bit more stable on flat out gravel roads or long pavement stretches. Now here's kind of where I try to take both bikes and apply it to this real world use of weight and suspensions and all that stuff. Now speaking of weight, the DRZ4S is about 44 pounds heavier, give or take, than the CRF450RL. The extra weight might initially seem like some sort of liability for tight, technical, single track or trails, but here's the thing. Based on what I've seen from DRZ4S website, this bike is actually aimed towards more aggressive riding, but still try to balance out that extra highway stretch. The extra weight could be more evenly distributed, like with a lower center of gravity, which could help it feel more stable and less tiring over time on the highway stretches. Now, I've ridden the KLX 250-300, which is also fairly heavy. In my eyes, it felt a little bit more heavier than the CRF450R that I ridden, but it felt fine on technical trails still regardless. Still, I'm not sure how the DRZ4S will stack up in that department, especially in terrain where I'm not totally comfortable in. It seems like the DRZ4S is geared a little bit more towards comfort with the street side of things, with a slightly shorter suspension at 11 or so inches, which honestly could be a good thing for overall comfort on these faster roads, trails, and this is why it's such a hard pick. The weight might give the DRZ4S on smoother gravel roads or highways, but I'm wondering if it'll hold up as well when things get a little bit more gnarly and technical on terrain I'm not familiar with, because that's the whole point in my eyes of dual sporting, is just go out and ride and explore and check out what the trail has to offer. That balance of street comfort versus technical capabilities is what makes this decision a bit tricky. Now, for the suspension preference, KYB versus Showa, I kind of want to talk a little bit on suspensions. I'm not a pro on suspensions by any means whatsoever. It's just things that I've ridden. Over the years, my riding style definitely has evolved. It has changed. I've ridden both KYB and Showa suspensions, and I have a pretty strong preference depending on my style, but ultimately, I'm still not even 100% sure. Back when I was riding a little bit more aggressively at speed on some choppy, loose rock terrain in Colorado, I definitely preferred the Showa suspensions. Showa suspension gives you that more planted, stable feel at higher speeds. It's a bit firmer in my eyes, but it's great when you're pushing the bike in rougher conditions or riding at faster paces. However, my style definitely has softened over time, and now I actually really like the KYB suspensions. I find it to be a lot more plush and comfortable at slower speeds, especially when you're just kind of cruising and soaking up the trails without feeling like you're constantly going to get beat up by the bike. KYB's newer models, especially with that A-kit suspension, offer a great blend of comfort and performance. It's known for offering a more forgiving feel. That's the way I kind of describe it. It's great for riders who don't need that full-on professional, what would you call it, full aggressive holdup, but still want performance in rougher terrain. Now here's the kicker. Even though the CRF450RL comes with Showa, which I prefer for aggression as of now, the DRZ4S with its KYB suspension is aimed at more aggressive riding too, just with a softer, more comfortable ride in mind. Now with the maintenance setup, I think and I believe with the CRF450RL, you're getting a more aggressive high performance setup, but that comes at a cost of more frequent maintenance intervals. It's a little bit more finicky, especially with suspension settings and valve maintenance. So for riders who aren't as dedicated to wrenching on their bikes, I believe the DRZ4S has a better clear edge when it comes to cost and frequency of maintenance. This is going to be a very tough choice. And then of course the final value, or the final topic, the DRZ4S comes in at around $899 and the CRF450RL is closer to $11,000, sometimes more, just depending on your dealer. It's a little bit of a gap, and for some folks the DRZ's simplicity, price, and reliability, not to say Honda is not reliable, just might be the better buy. Let me know in the comments what you would pick and why, and if you've ridden both. I'd love to hear your take. It will definitely help me figure this one out, and as always, I'll see you guys on my next video.